What is going on, guys? Welcome back into another video. In today's video, guys, I want to show you my favorite Solar 3.0 build for my Warlock that I've used during the season of the Haunted. Now, this is the same build that got me through the Duality Dungeon, Solo Flawless, and honestly, guys, if you use this the right way, this thing is completely overpowered, and honestly, I don't know why you would use anything else on a Warlock right now. Now, the objective of this build, guys, is to really lean into Restoration and Restoration times 2, being able to use Radiant as much as possible, and then obviously, because of the exotic we're using, is to really lean into those fusion grenades to do a ton of damage on bosses, and to always have a grenade in a rift available. Now, to start things off, guys, we're going to be using Well of Radiance, and we're stacking that with an Empowering Rift. Now, the way this is going to work, you actually don't need a Healing Rift. Empowering is going to work just fine because when you pop your class ability with some of the mods that we have on, you're going to proc Restoration, so therefore you don't need the healing effects of a Healing Rift. Now, we're also using Burst Glide and Celestial Fire for that melee. Celestial Fire is basically going to send out a spiral of 3 explosive solar energy blast, which is amazing. Now, when we throw this out, this is going to proc Radiant, which is huge, and we're going to try to capitalize on that as much as possible. We're also using fusion grenades. Again, this is because of our exotic of choice, which is going to be StarFire Protocol. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Fusion grenades are an explosive grenade that attaches to targets, damaging and moderately scorching them on detonation. This is going to proc Scorch and Ignition as well. Now, moving over to our aspects, guys, the first one I'm using is Touch of Flame, and what's great about this one, guys, is it's going to allow our fusion grenades to explode twice, which is huge since we're doubling up on fusion grenades with the exotic that we're using. The other one I'm using is completely subjective, so you could certainly throw on Heat Rises if you'd like to, but I'm using Icarus Dash. What's great about this one is it's going to give you a ton of mobility to get out of sticky situations. It also does proc Cure when you have airborne kills with your super or weapon. In our case, it would be the weapon. Now, moving over to the fragments I'm using, guys, the first one is going to be Ember of Solace. Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. The next one is going to be Ember of Wonder. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. You also get a +10 in resilience by using this one, guys. The third one is going to be Ember of Empyrean. Honestly, this is probably the best fragment in the entire game. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant effects applied to you. You do lose 10 resilience on this, but honestly, guys, it's completely worth it. And the last one's going to be Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. Now, moving over to the armor mods that I'm using to make this build absolutely overpowered, the first one I'm using is Bountiful Wells. Elemental well mods that cause you to spawn elemental wells can now stack, spawning additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. Now, on my gauntlets, guys, I'm going with Melee Wellmaker. Powered melee combatant final blows spawn elemental wells matching your subclass energy type. Now, again, on my chest, I am using StarFire Protocol as my exotic of choice to give us 2 fusion grenades, which is huge. Also, we're stacking an elemental ordnance on it. Defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type. Now, another thing to note about StarFire Protocol is it does have the armor perk Fusion Harness. Fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage. Fusion grenades kills grant rift energy as well. Now, on the boots, I'm using Well of Life, which is picking up a solar elemental well, grants increased regen for a short period of time. And on the bond, guys, we are doing Classy Restoration, which is probably one of the most important mods in this entire build, which is basically activating your solar class abilities, grant you restoration. We are also throwing on Solar Fulmination, which is your ignitions do increased damage in an increased radius, and we are putting on a Well of Ordnance, which is picking up a solar elemental well, grants you additional grenade energy. Multiple copies of this mod increase this effect. Now, in terms of weapons to use with this build, guys, there's a few different ways that you could certainly go with this. I would encourage you to use a weapon that does damage over time. In my case, I'm using Wither Horde. You could throw on Anarchy. There's a few different ways you could certainly go with this, but in my opinion, I think Wither Horde is probably the best fit because you're using special ammo and not heavy ammo to do it. So I do have Wither Horde on, and I'm also using a Solar SMG in Callus Mini Tool. There's a few different ones that you could certainly use. Death Adders are out there as well. Callus is amazing. I did get one with the perk Incandescent, which is absolutely amazing. Incandescent, if you guys don't know about that, is defeating your target spreads Scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause Scorch in a larger radius. And for my heavy guys, I am using Storm Chaser, which is a linear fusion rifle that you can get out of the new Duality dungeon. The role that I have on it is auto-loading and Vorpal. As of right now, I believe Storm Chaser with Vorpal is the highest DPS weapon in the game. Now, really the best way to use this build and to utilize the weapons the right way is you're always going to have a rift and you're always going to have grenades available. Now, when you pop your rift, you're basically proccing restoration times 2 immediately. Every time you get a solar kill within 10 seconds, pretty much, you're going to re-proc restoration. So you're going to continuously have restoration available as long as you continue to get solar kills. Now, the other nice thing about this, guys, is if you're standing in your rift or well and you shoot a Wither Horde at an enemy and it's doing damage over time, it's going to refill your grenade energy super fast. You're basically always going to have 2 grenades available. You're going to be able to use those fusion grenades as DPS weapons and do a ton of damage to bosses. Now, another huge benefit with this build is that your powered melee attacks are going to make you radiant. And the way that I would use this, guys, is going into a boss fight is I would throw my melee at the boss, making me radiant. That way we do that extra damage with our weapons. I would pop a rift, hit the boss with Wither Horde, which does the continued damage over time, and then that basically procs unlimited grenades for the duration of that rift. By the time the rift runs out, you basically have another rift available anyways, so you constantly have unlimited grenades as long as you're doing damage over time with Wither Horde or Anarchy or whatever your weapon of choice is. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, guys, is the survivability with this build. Remember, every time you get a grenade kill, you then get your rift back. And even though we're using an empowering rift, every time we drop an empowering rift, we're proccing restoration times 2. And every time we get a solar kill using that SMG, you're continuing that restoration. So honestly, guys, as long as you continue to get solar kills, whether it's a melee kill, whether it's a weapon kill, whether it's a grenade kill, you're always going to have restoration times 2 procced as long as you do it within 10 seconds. Now, that to me is what puts this build over the top. That's how I was able to solo Duality with really no issues at all. As long as you're patient and you kind of play it smart and go into sticky situations with a grenade and a rift, honestly, you're going to be able to survive anything. Now, one extra thing I would definitely throw at you and recommend with this build is try to get your character to a tier 10 resilience if possible. Remember that resilience got a massive buff this season, and with a tier 10, you're going to get a damage reduction of 40%, which is going to make some of the in-game activities that much easier because you can take that much more damage. Now, to wrap things up, guys, honestly, this build is amazing. I think you guys will really enjoy it, and I really hope that this build helps you guys get through some of the tough in-game activities that you're trying to get through. If you guys have any recommendations or suggestions that I should change around on the build, let me know in the comments below because I'd always like to hear your feedback and to see if something better is out there. Also, guys, a quick reminder, I do stream on Twitch 5 days a week, and if you're enjoying the content on the channel, be sure to hit that thumbs up and sub to the channel. It definitely helps me out, and I certainly appreciate all the amazing support. Thanks again for stopping in and checking out the content, guys. Before we go, I will leave kind of a quick rundown of the entire build for your guys' reference as well, and I will plan on seeing you guys in the next video.